We will be focusing on correct piano technique and musical interpretation for Ballad by Burgmuller, Opus 100, number 15. And if you're not playing this piece, I'm sure you will still find this very useful because the focus will be on piano technique and musical interpretation and not on the notes today. The first concept that you want to remember with this piece, and just whenever you have repeated chords, is to have a loose hand and have a very light bounce for these repeated chords. You definitely don't want to stiffen up the hand, and don't make the sound very loud, just very nice and light bounce. Now, where do you think is the melody for this piece? In the beginning part, it is in the left hand, and the left hand is pretty exciting. There's a lot going on here, so it is the left hand. The right hand, that's why the right hand should be nice and soft. We don't want to overpower the melody at all with a big right hand sound, and that would be boring with all those repeated chords, right? So we do need to focus on the left hand. So the left hand is the melody, and that's why you do want to keep the right hand nice and light so it doesn't overpower the melody. Now, the left hand has a lot going on. Just that part, it's so exciting, so much right in here to make it so beautiful. So first of all, if you cannot articulate those 16th notes very well, you need to do some exercises in order to get your hand to be able to do that without stiffening up. So always a nice relaxed, loose wrist, loose hand, using arm weight. First thing to do is just play it slowly. Don't play it faster than you can. Number 2, practice it with staccato, kind of like you're plucking the keys, and this will get your fingers to really get active. Now, when you do this, make sure your wrist is not too low. You need to be sitting high enough. You need to make sure that your wrist is nice and straight here, and even though the fingers are active, you're still not only using the fingers, not punching the fingers like this, but more plucking right there. Number 3, use different rhythms. Now, this I recommend only if you're pretty good at rhythm, and if you're playing this piece, you should be good at rhythm by now. So we're going to do long, short. And then you always have to do the opposite, which is going to be short, long. And do these exercises every day if you need to. Do them several times a day so that you're really improving your finger technique in this. And then finally, when you're actually speeding this up and playing it fast, make sure that you have a light touch. If you're going to play every note heavy, it's going to be very difficult to play it fast. That light touch gives it flight and gives it speed. Okay, going on to the next part. We have sforzandos in here, kind of like a big accent. So, and that's coming into measure 7. So what you want to do here is really throw your hand with the full arm weight into this chord. Throw your hand. And now let's add in the right hand and listen for the balance in both hands. So the right hand needs to be nice and soft and light, and the left hand has the melody. Even though it's piano, I would do it just a little bit louder so that you really hear the excitement here and hear the melody well. Okay, so for the next part here, we have chords from measure 19 to measure 24. Now for these chords, I want you to imagine a bouncy ball. The first chord is going to be the big bounce and then the small bounce. So I want you to both hear those big bounce to little bounce and also feel it with your arms and with your wrist. Have that complete looseness and feel your hands just bounce up and down, and that way you will get that right sound and you will have no tension. Now there's also a crescendo, so each first chord is a little bit louder, so we're going to just do a bigger drop into the first chord and then bounce. Bigger drop and then bounce. And now for the arpeggio, measure 24 to measure 27. Here, the most important part is to really feel it from the first note all the way to the last note. Like that, and not like this. You hear how that last time there was an emphasis on every single measure and broke it up a little bit. So we need only one emphasis that takes you all the way down to the last note. And now for the Mercato Accents here, drop your hands into each chord with full arm weight. You definitely can't have a stiff hand here. Don't press into the keys to make a louder sound. You need to drop, drop, drop. And I add just a little spice of pedal to emphasize just a little bit more, and I like that sound personally. But watch my hands as I drop them in with full arm weight. This next part is very interesting. So maybe you heard a big fermata, kind of a long pause right before we switched into the dolce section. So yes, the section, it changes completely. We have a different key signature. We're going into major now instead of minor. And this is dolce sweetly. We went from misterioso, mysterious, to dolce sweetly, completely different mood here. So we do need that fermata to emphasize the change. And then we're moving into this dolce section. So nice and sweet. The melody goes into the right hand. So now the right hand will be louder than the left. The left will be nice and soft chords. And then in the right hand, I want you to feel the long melody lines. So don't feel every measure, but really go from one note, stretch the line all the way to the end of the phrase. Make it feel as if it is on one breath. I like to also add just a touch of pedal in this dolce section. So when I press down the pedal, I don't press it all the way down. I just press it a little bit. There are like different levels of how much you can press a pedal. So I'm just doing the very, very top, just very gently to create a little bit of smoothness without it just blurring everything together. And let me play it in two ways here so you can hear the difference. then we have this fun animated staccato, absolutely no pedal here, and that leads us into the 2-note slurs. And with the 2-note slurs, what you want to do is you want to drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift. The left hand kind of follows that motion, even though it doesn't really have a 2-note slur. It has two repeated chords there. But as much as you can, try to follow the feel of that 2-note slurs of the drop, lift with the left hand as well. Okay, this is so much fun. So many changes in this music that just makes it very fun to play. So animated, going into these 2-note slurs. We're still very animated. Right there, I feel like I'm doing the staccatos kind of on one breath. Very, very nice and short and fun, but still leading. It still feels like one phrase in there, and then going into the sforzando, and then this phrase that you want to just stretch out in a sense, so that you're leading from one note all the way to the last note and not just hearing every note as like a syllable or something. And then we snap right back into the rhythm at this part here, where the key signature changes back. And here it kind of all repeats again. So everything I went over, just apply it again until we get to the very ending, where both hands now have those 16th notes, and we're going from forte and have a diminuendo. And so again, we just need to keep the momentum going in here. So in this last part, we have those fast 16th notes again, but in both hands. Really try to make sure that you're playing exactly together. You might want to give a little emphasis in every measure just to make sure everything's exactly together. Do the same exercises for both hands this time, and you could even do the exercises hands together. I mean the staccato, the slow, the long short, and the short long rhythms. And then of course having a light touch when you are speeding this up. And then for the chords, you want to have that bouncy ball effect. So we're going big bounce, little bounce. Also with the diminuendo. And then once you lift from that last chord, you want to rainbow over and land on the last chord with the top note, that E, standing out a little bit louder than the rest, and that's just going to give that beauty to the last chord. So beautiful right there. I love that sound of the third on top, creating that beautiful chord.